Hi guys, this is new, chapter 226 of Jujutsu Kaisen is here. Before we start the video, make sure like the video and don't forget subscribe my channel. Thanks. I'm just gonna tell you right now that in this chapter, the slicing does not stop because at the very top of the chapter we see Gojo repairing his neck using reverse curse technique. But Higuruma mentions that as long as Gojo stays within the malevolent shrine's radius, he's still very susceptible to cleave dismantle, while the main cast that's watching the fight discuss the possibility of Gojo now being able to flee, seeing as how Sukuna's domain expansion doesn't have a closed barrier. So with Gojo's speed, he should be able to easily escape. Normally, he would just use his teleportation technique and get the hell out of there as soon as he can. However, the major issue here is that Gojo just used his domain expansion, meaning that this curse technique is currently burnt out. This means that Gojo would have to just old-fashioned run as fast as he can away from the radius of Malevolent Shrine. But of course, Sukin is not just gonna let him do that. So as Kusakabe says, Gojo isn't a real pickle right now. And we immediately see how right he is because we cut back to Gojo and Sukuna. And Gojo is getting completely annihilated by Cleave Dismantle. And he's covered with so many slashes and gushing so much blood that his entire body just looks completely black, like you can't see skin or anything straight. A brutal amount of damage that Gojo's taking right now, so it makes everything that he does after this point just that much more impressive. Suguna notices that Gojo's trying to make his escape, and he exchanges a few blows with Gojo in order to keep him from doing this. But in the midst of everything, Gojo also thinks to himself that he's glad that his own curse technique performance is far superior to Sukuna's, and what he means by this is that he's currently tanking Sukuna's Cleave Dismantle Malevolent Shrine technique. But if he used his own unlimited void on Sukuna, it would be game over instantly. That's the best available. But that's essentially what Gojo's thinking to himself right now, while in the midst of trading blows. Gojo also thinks to himself that it seems that Malevolent Shrine's ability is actually coming from the shrine itself and not from Sukuna. So the epicenter of the Cleave Dismantle technique that Malevolent Shrine uses originates from the shrine itself. And this might actually be very important in a second because Yuji also mentions the possibility of Gojo just destroying the shrine and possibly stopping the technique that way, while Kusakabe and Mei may have their doubts, because Kusakabe says usually objects that manifest through an innate domain don't have any particular meaning or purpose. You could say that they may as well not exist. And then Mei says if the shrine is just a symbol of the domain itself, then it can't be destroyed, and there's no point in doing so. And if Gojo has the 6 eyes and hasn't chosen to destroy it yet, that just proves the point. So essentially what they're saying is that the shrine is symbolic. It doesn't serve any actual practical purpose. It's just there for show. But what ends up happening at the end of this chapter might make you think twice about the statement. So you're definitely going to want to hold on to this little conversation for the end, immediately after this. Though Gojo surprises everybody and uses new shadow-style simple domain. Well, Yuji's pretty confused after seeing this, because he thought that Gojo didn't know how to use simple domain. Kusakabe corrects him and says that he didn't know how to teach it, and what he means by this is that natural-born geniuses and gifted people like Gojo pick up new techniques immediately, without even really having to try to learn or mastery it. They just know how to do it right from the jump. So someone that can learn new techniques as easily as they breathe, like Gojo, don't know how to teach the necessary steps that a normal person would need to learn these types of techniques, while the simple domain ends up buying him a little bit of time to heal himself. But she also points out that this is only a temporary fix, so Gojo is still under a lot of trouble right now, while the simple domain gets shattered, and Sukuna slashes Gojo yet again, and completely covers his body with cuts, while Gojo, being the dog that he is, uses simple domain immediately after using it the first time. But the difference is that this time he isn't healing his wounds. So this is when Yuta starts to worry that Gojo has run out of cursed energy, and he's fully exhausted, and isn't able to heal himself anymore, with reverse curse technique. But we've learned that he's actually doing something else because the narrator says will he lose that Satoru Gojo with, a question mark and exclamation points, pretty much saying like, come on. This is Gojo we're talking about here, and like I said at the top of the video, we learn right here why Gojo is truly the honored one. Because Sukuna notices that his speed increased, and out of nowhere Gojo wraps his whole body around Sukuna. And in that moment he leans back, points his fingers at Sukuna and says, "Curse technique reversal red," and shoots him point blank in the face with red and sends him flying into the shrine and completely destroying it. So what actually ended up happening is that Gojo wasn't healing himself with reverse curse technique. When he put up the second simple domain, he was actually healing his burnt out curse technique. And this is something that I did not know was possible. and is a little bit confusing to kind of understand because you think that something like reverse curse technique that uses a ton of cursed energy wouldn't be able to heal a burnt-out curse technique. But like with the previous chapter where the one before that, Gojo and Sukuna had this like all-out brawl with barely any dialogue, the previous chapter kind of brought everybody up to speed and explained everything that was happening, and this is more than likely going to be the case in the next chapter, where they explain exactly how Gojo used reverse curse technique to heal his own burnt-out curse technique. But getting back to what I said earlier about holding on to that statement between Kusakabe and Mei, we gotta remember that Mei says that if the shrine can't be destroyed, then it more than likely doesn't have an actual purpose to it, and it's just there for show. What we see right here at the end of the chapter, that Gojo actually manages to destroy the shrine, meaning that the shrine itself might actually be dispersing the cleave dismantle attacks, and Yuji was actually onto something otherwise. I don't think Gege would bring up these little details for no particular reason. Kusakabe and Mei might have just been like a misdirect to make it seem even that more crazy that Gojo managed to destroy the shrine. And stop the ability, we know that Sukuna has this binding vowel where he can't close off his domain. So it creates the drawbacks of being easily escapable if you had a technique like Gojo did, where you can just teleport out of it. But in exchange, it makes it insanely powerful, because it covers such a large radius, while this might also be a part of the binding vow, where under normal circumstances these physical constructs within a domain don't really serve any purpose, but in Sukuna's particular case, the shrine might actually serve a very specific purpose and actually dispensing the cleave dismantle technique, and to kind of build off of that. I also don't see Gojo specifically mentioning the fact that the cleave dismantle technique is coming from the shrine itself in Sukuna. If it wasn't going to come back into play later, it seems like Akutami specifically gave it this mention in this panel for this specific purpose, for it to come back later. And this could also tie back to what Mei says, when she points out that since Gojo has the 6 eyes, if he hasn't decided to destroy the shrine yet, then that means that it would be completely pointless for him to do so, and the shrine is actually just symbolic, and doesn't serve any purpose. I don't know. I just think that this was Gage kind of revealing something without revealing something, and kind of setting us up to have this fully explained in next chapter where the narrator or somebody explains that, yeah, it actually turns out that Sukuna really did make it to where his shrine would be physical, and destroying it would actually stop the malevolent shrine technique again. We're probably going to get this stuff all explained in next chapter, but I'm just so happy how ultimately hyped this chapter was. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you thought about the chapter in the comments below. I'm very curious to know what you think kind of happened at the end of this chapter here. Let me know if you think Sukuna's curse technique is now stopped because Gojo destroyed the shrine or not. So make sure to subscribe and turn the notifications on, because I cover spoilers and chapter reviews as soon as I can, so you definitely want to have those notifications on, so you can be the first person to know as soon as the next chapter drops. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys in the next video.